Very good! Yeah!
Alrighty then, let's get into it. Volume 8 of RWBY. A lot's been said about this volume. And you know what? I don't really want to say anything that's already been said. I mean, what's not been said at this point? It's bad. It has bad pacing. We're repeating ourselves. We're constantly making the same mistakes we have over and over again. Blah, 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 blah. You get my point. I feel like one character suffers from this the most. I can't use English today, apparently. And no, it's not Penny. Yeah, Penny was boned up the rear, basically by this entire too-long volume of Atlas, but no, it's not her. I can't even explain why, but the one I'm talking about is Ironwood, the glorified Tin Man, the genocide general, the rear end of RWBY by Volume 8. Oh boy. Look, I can be forgiving, but this is really just one of the things that made this volume just one of the biggest failures of Rooster Teeth that you could ever have. And I feel bad about it. I want to be able to like this character. I want to actually be able to see the good that could have been done. And I really have a hard time looking past the very obvious character flaws. The incredible turn they made for no reason, and the sheer audacity of Rooster Teeth for calling this a good management of character. No, this was character assassination, and we all know it. But I'm not going to do all that. Instead, I want to go by Ironwood in the best way I think I can. Chronologically, from the good, the bad, and what could have been. So sit back, grab yourself a drink, and let's get into this. Oh boy, I'm going to be here for a while. Alright, now just to preface this, I'm going to say this is of my opinion. None of this is factual, and to any who want to actually give me criticism in the comments for anything I have said, please do so. Because I'm just going to start from the good here and work our way down. And then we'll try and rise back up by the end of it, hopefully. Now, baseline, I want to talk about Ironwood before Volume 8. Introduced in Volume 2, Ironwood was our first real glimpse into Atlas as a kingdom and was surprisingly inconsistent with characters like Weiss, who we had seen before. He comes in and is probably the most polite and friendly person we see introduced to us by the showrunners. He's consistent. He respects those he speaks to despite being in a position of high power. He's cordial with Ozpin the moment he meets him. However, this is marred by the fact he brings an entire fleet with him. He borders the line of paranoid and prepared so well, I have a hard time talking about it. He always wants to ensure the safety of others, even if it disregards subtlety. I mean, most people do prefer having the easy way out and just dealing with the problem. However, we also see he's genuine the whole time. He argues with Ozpin and Glinda, but he never comes across as ignorant or unable to listen. He consistently speaks through the problems, and even speaks to Glinda as an equal just to get her perspective. By Volume 3, this continues. He explains his plans outright, and even expresses some disappointment that Yang had been disqualified when she broke Mercury's leg, and even expressed more disappointment that Crow had openly disregarded him without even listening. It's only when the fall of Beacon starts that things become different. He immediately shifts into the person we expect him to be. He immediately speaks to Ozpin and gets work done. He shows off his power against the Beowulf, killing it probably in one of the most impressive ways I can, and I have to give him credit for this, or the person who voice acted for him. His speech to the students is probably one of the most earnest and honest things I've ever heard from a show done in a while. Here, just give it a listen.
Grim are crawling all over the city. The White Fangs invaded Beacon, and to make matters worse, some vagabond has seized one of my ships. You have two choices. Defend your kingdom and your school, or save yourselves. No one will fault you if you leave.
I mean, granted, it's not a speech, a full speech, but you have to give him credit. He recognizes that the best fighters at Beacon right now are the huntsmen and children training to be huntsmen. He doesn't let them have it easy. He lets them have an out and allow them to leave if they want to. That is the mark of a leader. Not someone who's going to force it on you, the one who's going to lead you into battle. But then you have the bad part. The fleet gets hacked. In a matter of moments, his entire fleet is torn apart, his knights turn against him and turn on the people of the city, making the situation far worse. But this also doesn't stop him. It just makes him fight without his army. He keeps going, he doesn't stop. Also, side note, I do love the misunderstanding with him and Crow, since he genuinely does think Crow would assume that this was all his fault. And by the end of Volume 3, he returns to Atlas, and we don't see him for what can assume to be a few weeks or a few months. I won't admit this, but the ending of Volume 3 sort of made it kind of hard for me to timetable this shit. I have no idea where I'm going with this. By Volume 4, this is the last we see of him until Volume 7, which is why I'll go ahead and paraphrase where I can. He's openly put up a dust embargo by this point around Atlas to prevent more robberies like the one up to Beacon, and also to go ahead and be more careful about what's happening in Mistral at this time. Throughout the volume, we see him consistently clash heads with Jock over this, but it never gets to the point where he simply overrules him. It's a conversation every time, granted, one that has subtlety to it, but it's still a conversation. He's not simply saying no, he's simply saying, I have the power, please work with me. At the party, we also see this continue where he defends the people of it from the Borbatusk that Weiss summons, but he also doesn't blame Weiss for it. He sees exactly what she sees and openly sides with her, defending her point about the Elysian High Society. By now, they've built up Ironwood surprisingly well. He's only had a few scenes, but he's made very consistent in everything he's ever done, and I really do appreciate this. And now we get to Volume 7, and I was actually surprised that they had actually kept up with this. The first time we see him in Atlas, when we get to Volume 7, is not in person, but on a screen. Our heroes are on the ship, and they see Ironwood. And the first concern is not how he looks angry, how he's being tyrannical. It's that he looks tired. And the situation looks far different than what they came to. Once they finally meet up with Ironwood, and Ironwood is filled in, as much as everyone will let him, he immediately opens up to the group. He tells them his plans, gives them clearance and upgrades, and only asks for their assistance in getting the Amity Tower up and running. Aside from this, the only other time we actually see Ironwood is during his talk with Oscar in the vault chamber. My god, I love the dialogue between them. Clearly, Ironwood wants Ozpin to be able to talk to confide in, to get some answers, but he isn't getting that. And when he gets flashes of Beacons, I was genuinely surprised. Ironwood had a lot on his plate. He doesn't want to be the bad guy. He wants to do the right thing. After finally having most of his plans succeed in a substantial hiccup, Ironwood defiantly defeats Watts and lets his shoulders sag as he enters his office with the suitcase and one arm down, only to see the Queen on his desk, the symbol of his very failure, and it immediately makes him fearful. Cinder got in, and he was on the back foot. After this, he becomes extremely more tense. He immediately calls into question everything he's done, his plans, everything, whether or not the villains are inside. And when he's told about Yang and Blake lied to him and told Robin about the communication tower, he realizes that he made a mistake in trusting them. The betrayal on his face is perfectly given how our heroes were tying him down and withholding information. He realizes he has to adapt and doesn't waste time. He immediately gets the plan to save as many people as he can by raising Atlas, getting his top operative the Maiden Powers, and holding out until he can find a way to stop Salem. By the end of the volume, what is left is a man completely lost for what to do, angry for his failures and misplaced trust, suffering from PTSD that is affecting his better judgment. Now I won't go too much further since I really need to wrap up this part, but I'd like to say something about his semblance. It's never stated, and it's something the writers have basically given out as an explanation, but I have to say this. I actually love the semblance. I only hate how it's used as an excuse for what's to come. I won't talk about it again until we get to the later part, but I want everyone to know his semblance going into Volume 8. Metal. It allows Ironwood to push himself harder by hyper-focusing on an objective. Keep that in your back pocket, it'll make sense later. Now, to the bad. Oh boy, here it is. Volume 8. Ironwood is starting off the series with a... That scared the one. Yikes, that escalated fast. Immediately, Ironwood's kind nature is thrown out the window for no reason. Though as the moment Sleep disagrees with him, he's shut down like a dog. What? Why? I don't even know. Ironwood throughout Volume 8 becomes absolutely infuriating to watch. Gone is the man who openly spoke about his plans and confided in those he trusted. Gone was the man who had a heart, and now, along with it, his brain is gone too. Ironwood has no issue using Watts to get what he wants, despite knowing full well that Watts will betray him. Ironwood then makes a rational choice to destroy Monstra as she shows up using a big-ass nuke. Cool. Oh wait, our heroes did it first. Okay then. Ironwood takes this on his shoulder but behaves fairly calmly. Until he then starts talking. He believes that since Winter has captured Jean, Ren, and Yang, that he should use them as hostages and blackmail Penny to come back so he can move Atlas away. Once he realizes he can't do that, the only thing he does that's rational is smash a table. Weird, but okay. Then once he realizes Penny won't come up to him by any means, he decides to am I reading that? Blow up Mantle. Seriously? Who the hell thought this was a good idea? Oh boy. Ironwood's big evil move is to blow up his city, and likely lose any chance of getting the Maiden powers, because if Penny was down, like he assumed, I'm fairly certain the assumption would have been the powers would have gone to RWBY, and then since they're both Thin Mantle and would be dead thanks to the explosion, they would go to someone random. Okay, I'm getting off in the weeds. Once that threat is made, our heroes fight Ironwood and beat him. Hooray! They put him in a cell so they can evacuate him later using the staff. However, Ironwood gets out, and when Jacques asks to be let out, he kills him too. Why? I mean, granted, no one liked the guy, but chill out, dude. Ironwood then goes down to the vault to square up against Winter, and to this point I get sad. Ironwood's dialogue and writing in Volume 8 felt so forced, but this scene specifically just grinds my gears the wrong way. After another thorough ass beating from the Winter Maiden, he's left to die off screen knowing the villains have the relics. So, what the fuck? Why change his character? Why'd you change him to probably the most understanding person in power to the most incompetent loser no one wants to watch? I don't know. All I can do is assume, but my assumption is as good as yours. Development issues? Internal struggles within the company? Did someone just not like Ironwood? Could be any of those things. And I don't really have a good way of ending off this segment, so I'll try and swing it into the next segment. One that it takes more inspiration from fixing RWBY to any of those who's watched it. Okay, now, here's what I want to do. I haven't offered my own takes because I've been saving them until now. Just as a side note, I really can't say anything beyond this because this is my own take on Volume 8, so I'll simply give this section the fixing treatment, and if you have any opinions, please let them be known down below. Actually, I love the talks that people get into about this. And I actually want to give a shout out to those people who have been on Discord and talked about this with me just in my free time. They've been a huge help, and it really does help. I appreciate you guys. Thanks. Now, here's my take. We're going to start at the beginning of Volume 8 and go from there, so bear with me. We start at the scene where Ironwood is stressed to all hell. He's currently being fitted with a new arm as we hear the slow increase of the previous conversations from Volume 7 mixed with a few lines from Osmond during the earlier 3 volumes. As a nurse attempts to ask him if he's alright, we see him snap at her. That he's fine, and he reins himself in. Right now, he's trying to get his mind to be able to focus on the big picture, but it's a struggle. Remember his semblance? Yeah, he started hinting at it here. The next scene we see him is the same scene where he sees Winter in the hospital. Instead of the general being who he saw in Volume 8, he's quiet. He's reserved. When Winter attempts to talk to him, he confides in her that he's unsure. He's trying so hard to keep going, but it's becoming more difficult as he goes, and more people that he can't trust show up. Winter tries to get a word in, but it's clear she doesn't know what to say. Ironwood sighs and asks her to rest up because she's going to be busy when she's out of the hospital. Now, as he exits the room, an alarm blares for an injured soldier entering, and it's eerily similar to the one we hear from his ships from Volume 3. He seems to be fade in and out of both the hallway and what he sees as the ship. He's delirious, and the one thing he's managed to walk onto is a pair of Atlesian knights that he sees approaching. The red on their face it stares back at him, and out of fear, he fires at them, hitting one, and the other one dodges a bit too human for him to think. He pauses, and as he blinks back to reality, he sees that Sleet is on the ground and groaning from the shot to his shoulder. Ironwood at this point immediately is put into question. There is a concern for his mental health, but given the situation, he can't step down so easily, given the fact that Salem is right at their doorstep. He pleads forgiveness as Sleet is carted away, and Camilla leaves him with a threat of removal after this is over. From here, we don't need to change too much. Ironwood's plan is surprisingly solid, and he isn't being so reckless during the wars against Salem. I'd add showing the only reason that he's using the bomb is because the whale is actually acting as a barrier, which is going to brace the rest of the city from the explosion and not damage it too much. The same story continues to the point at which Ironwood sees the Aesop's return with a bomb. He expresses relief at the lack of risk, and he knows that he needs Penny for his plan to work. He asks where Yang, John, and Ren are, since they'd be able to at least get RWBY and Penny to talk, but he can't. Harriet tells Ironwood that Winter let them go, and he's not angry. No. By now, he is afraid. That was his last chance. He immediately tells Winter to please say it isn't true, but she admits it. He panics, and we see it. He begins hyperventilating slightly as his mind is flooded with several different things he's trying to focus on, till it hits one. Salem. He has to stall for more time, and he isn't thinking straight. He needs to ensure that he has enough time to get his people away and just buy more time against Salem. He orders the Aesops to get the bomb onto a cargo ship and get ready for it to be used. Now, we get to the scene where he addresses RWBY on the public communications on the screens. But now, this is what he said. I have always tried my best for this kingdom, to ensure its safety while avoiding the sacrifice of others. I haven't always succeeded. Penny, RWBY, if you're out there, please listen. Salem will return, and I cannot let her wreak havoc on my city. I have one bomb. It can destroy Salem and buy enough time, but without anything to hinder it, there will be collateral damage. I don't want to do this, but there isn't much time. Please, Penny, come back and we can find a way to help as many as we can, but we don't have much time. Please don't make me a murder. And the screen would go to black. From here, we see Ironwood prepare for Penny's arrival, but it's clear everyone is on edge, despite the Aesops being so loyal. Penny arrives, and instead of a fight with him, we see he thanks Penny, only to be knocked out by Winter. He's taken to a holding cell, and when he wakes up, he's torn, as Winter tells him that she'll take him away once they have a way out of Atlas. He tells himself he was in the right headspace, right? He's trying to save as many as he can. What made that so wrong? He's upset. But then he gets told Atlas is falling by Jacques. He realizes the relic is out of the vault. If Atlas was falling, then it's being used to help people, right? He has to know if that's true. He looks to the barriers around him as his cell, and then to his new arm. He doesn't hesitate. We watch as he beats his arm against the barrier again and again, several times as we watch his hand spark and break against the barrier, till it finally weakens enough and shuts down due to the fluctuating power. He looks to Jacques. Despite hating him for what he did in the election, he can't bring himself to let him die. He opens his cell and brings him along as he grabs one of his revolvers on the way out. Now, I don't want to actually say what happens to him, as I'm not a show writer and can't really do videography that well. But we see Winter escorting civilians inside the paths to Vacuo. We don't see Ironwood. Instead, we see Cinder come through that gate that would have been the one in the vault. We don't see anything of Ironwood until the finale ends, when we see Cinder exit that same gate to see Salem, and around her are this charred corpse of Jacques and Ironwood's barely living body. Ironwood looks up and sees Salem and Cinder. He reaches down into his pocket for a scroll. He knows that he can activate the bomb from here, which will at least buy time for everyone else. He clicks the detonator, as we see the bomb, which hadn't been moved from its port destination, detonate. The dust inside Atlas begins to chain react with the explosion, and instead of a slow fall, Cinder and Salem barely make it out to see Atlas crash down with enough force to level the RWBY range to the mountains. And there we have it. My take on Ironwood. I know this part is a bit imperfect, and a rewrite could be used. I'm not a writer. I wanted Ironwood to feel like he was trying to save people. Desperate to do so even. But I also didn't want him to get an imperfect death. Now he goes out with a bang. a genocide general? No. Now he's a fallen general. What do you guys think? Was this good enough? Was there anything you think would have made Ironwood's ending better? Leave a comment below, and I'll see you dudes later. Or when I decide to post again. I don't know. Fuck me, this is going on way too long, and my voice acting is actually at